This Tuesday, Game 5 edition of Pucks Across Borders on Sports Addict Live, YouTube, and on Twitter, brought to you by the one, the only First Round Collectibles. Right now with our promo code Sports Addict, get 10% off whatever sports card you want on the entire First Round Collectibles store. They have an ongoing sale up to 50% off, tons and tons of cards. And with our promo code Sports Addict, not only Sports Addict, rather, not only do you get 10% off of regular priced sales items, but regular priced items, but sales items as well. Hockey, football, basketball, baseball, wrestling, boxing, whatever you want, they got it. So go over to firstroundcollectibles.com today. Use promo code Sports Addict for 10% off regular price and sales priced items. That's the number one, STRoundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans.
Yeah. Let's go. We just gotta go hard. I go the hardest. I bring the pain. Not what you used to. It's all part of the game. Yeah. I just gotta go hard. I just gotta go hard. Go hard. Go hard. Yeah. Oh yeah, the beast back. Adrenaline pumping through my veins. Can't relax. Original. I am not the same as these cats. I sting them if they never ever.
Yeah, welcome to Pucks Across Borders on a Tuesday morning. Hopefully, the Oilers play better than I read that promo off the top of the show, because that was brutal. But we'll see what happens tonight. Beautiful day here in Toronto. Hot, bro. I don't know what it's like down there in like wherever you are, but it is hot up here. And I want to just, before I do introductions, before we talk about the game on Saturday, before we talk about tonight, I just want to get this out of the way right now, okay? This is a very common conversation in Canada where it's like, well, it's, 26 degrees, but it feels like 30 or feels like whatever. Did we talk about this the last show? I think we did. It feels like 42 degrees right now, which is over 100 Fahrenheit. I don't know exactly, like 104, 110, something like that. That's what the temperature is. I don't want anybody coming at me with, well, it's only 31 degrees. No. It feels like 42. It's 42, and it is brutal. I wonder what it's like in Florida, because tonight we have a game 5, and we're going to talk about it all. But first, as always, John, how we feeling on a Tuesday, man? Good to see you.
This feels like a rare time where it's probably warmer in our locations than it is in Florida. Because
Yeah, maybe.
where I am, it's like over 90. Have no idea what that is in Celsius. 30 something, I'll say.
Yeah.
But gotta prevent the ice from melting. And Florida wants to play a little bit longer. Not too much longer, though. We'll have to see what happens tonight. And I think we learned a little more about Oilers faithful over the weekend from their fans. I don't know if our listeners saw the latest video from Oilers Girl, but she gave me some strong Letterkenny vibes, man.
Oh yeah, that's Northern Canada, man. And I mean, like Edmonton's not like north or whatever, but that's rural Canadian, man. Like Letterkenny, Trailer Park Boys. It's not verbatim all Canadians, but there's some truth to all of that, man. Absolutely. Well, listen, let's dive in to Saturday night. It's hard when you see a game like that. It's hard to not just completely buy in, right? And just completely be like, this team is coming back. It's 8-1 or whatever. So first of all, well, we'll get into that when we talk about game 5, but we'll start with you, man. 8-1, not.
Your mic okay?
Yeah, my mic.
I think Mark's having some technical difficulties over there. Let's see if his mic is working now.
Here we go. My apologies. It's a weird show already this morning, but that's okay. Yeah, it was 8-1, not even close. 2-1. 2-0, then 2-1. Beautiful save by Stuart Skinner on Verhaeghe to keep the game 2-1. By the end of the period, it was 3-1, and the game is history. John, we'll start with you, man. What did you see in that game, and did it give you any confidence in the Oilers moving forward?
Funny story about that. Just to bring up the NBA here for a second, after the Mavericks had their blowout game 4 on Friday night, my dad and I were talking like Saturday morning about the game 4, and he said, I bet you the Oilers are going to win like 8-2 tonight after that. And we were watching the game live later that night, and we brought it up again, and my dad was like, I was pretty close, wasn't I?
Yeah.
I was almost rooting for Florida to get a last-second goal there just to get the exact score. But, yeah, I don't necessarily buy very quickly that the Oilers are going to come back and run the table, so to speak. I think it shows that they're capable of putting on a dominant performance like we've seen flashes of in the prior 2 or 3 rounds. So everyone stepped up for the Oilers, but I think the problem is in that type of performance, and I saw this with the Celtics and the Mavericks too, like the game was so decided by maybe not even halfway through that the losing team, in this case the Panthers, I would argue could write off the game and mentally be back in Florida before they even leave the arena. So I almost think it's better to win a really close game in that situation, but you're certainly not going to complain about an 8-1 win. And good for the Oilers fans for getting this experience that too. They could really use a big win like that in the final. So that does concern me that it's almost such a blowout that the Panthers can just throw it all out and forget it ever happened in Game 5. I do think the Oilers stand a better chance of extending this series than the Mavericks did, because after the NBA Game 4, I was like, there's no way the Mavericks are winning Game 5. I bet the house on the Celtics.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily feel that way about this series. I think the Oilers are a little more capable of extending this series, mainly because I don't think Florida has that offensive spark in them the way the Oilers did put up 8. I'm not saying the Oilers are going to put up 8 every game going forward, but
No.
I do think we have to assume that the one or two goals they were held to in the first 3 games, that is very atypical for them as well. So maybe it could result in finding the balance there, like maybe going back to like 4 goals a game from the Oilers. And if they can do that, and they certainly have the players to do it, and I do like the fact they're continuing to get production from their depth. I think they're doing a better job of that in this series than in prior rounds.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
So I think if they can continue that while the star players can find a way through, yeah, there's an opening for Edmonton for sure. And there's an interesting little nerdy stat ESPN put out there at the end of Game 4. It involves your Maple Leafs, Mark, going way back to 1942.
Oh, boy. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We talked about this on a previous show, that the Leafs were the only team to come back in the Stanley Cup final down 3-0. But that Oilers 8-1 win is the biggest margin of victory in an elimination game since those 1942 Toronto Maple Leafs. I think they won 9-3 according to the graphic I saw the other nights in their elimination game. So if it follows that trend, then maybe the Oilers do have something going here.
Well, first of all, good morning, Adam. Good to see you, man. Thanks for joining the show. My son is in a mood this morning. Big props to my amazing wife who is holding down the fort while I talk about a game that doesn't matter. It's amazing. But anyway, so this is my thoughts. A couple things. Number one, I get what you're saying about how the Panthers, like the beatdown was so bad, 8-1. They can just pack it up, doesn't matter, move on. Maybe if you lose 3-2 in double overtime, maybe that's more crushing than an 8-1 loss. I can see what you're saying. However, on the other side of that, if you're the Oilers, we didn't just squeak out a 3-2 win. We beat the brakes off of them. You know what I mean? And I feel like for the Oilers side, you needed like an absolute like demolition of the other team. Like you needed that blowout win. Everything goes in. Those 5 goals were on 16 shots, right? Like that wasn't just like 5 goals on Bobrovsky throughout, 25, 30 shots. Everything went in. And so if I'm the Oilers, I'm thinking like, not only did we just destroy them on Saturday, the Oilers should have won game 1. And game 3, I don't know if they would have won it, either way. But those 6 minutes in the second period of game 3 completely took them out of the game, right? So you're kind of thinking to yourself, should have won game 1, 6 minutes, game 2, our heads completely fell off our bodies. We're right there. And if they win tonight, this series is completely back to normal. And what I mean by that is in every single game 6 of any playoff in any sport, hockey, basketball, not football, baseball, any game 6 of any sport, somebody was up 3-2 and somebody was down 3-2. That's the way it works with math, right? Someone's up 3-2, someone's down 3-2 going to game 6. That's how it works. So if the Oilers win tonight, somebody had to be down 3-2. It happens to be them. And you just go from there. I look at that game Saturday and I heard and like read some people being hard on, Draisaitl for still not scoring and Hyman for still not scoring. Listen, you had 15 players get points the other night. I think for a total of like 24, 25, 26 points, something like that. You had Yamark score a goal. You had Henrique score a goal. You had Holloway scored 2. You have McLeod scored. Nugent Hopkins chipped in. McDavid got 4 points. Like, for all the talk that we've had about depth throughout this playoffs, whether it was the second round against the Canucks, conference finals against Dallas, their depth has been invisible when it comes to the score sheet. In this Stanley Cup finals, their depth might be the reason why they're even here still, right? So to me, I mean, they're in a really good spot. I thought Stuart Skinner, really good spot. That's a stretch. Obviously, they're down 3-1 in the series still. But the one thing about Saturday night, John, that I think was really overlooked is Stuart Skinner. Because you see 8-1, you see the shot total. I'm trying to remember 33 shots on net, 14 by Florida in the first period, 4 in the second, 15 in the third. Now, meanwhile, by the third period, the game was over. But I thought when the game was 2-1, 3-1, I thought that Skinner made some massive, massive saves. And so at the end of the game, you see 8-1. You don't really think about Stuart Skinner. I already mentioned it. That 2-on-1 shot by Verhaeghe, that was going in the back of the net. And if that goes in, the game's tied 2-2, and who knows what happens. Skinner, I thought, played very, very well, especially in the first period. Gave them the chance, and the Oilers took advantage. Now, listen, the Panthers played their worst game of the postseason. There's no denying that. They were awful for large stretches of that game. That being said, John, if we know the Florida Panthers, like I think we know the Florida Panthers, they're not putting up a performance like that again, right? Like tonight, I expect maybe their best game of the postseason, just like game one, right? Game one by the Panthers was not very strong, and Bobrovsky saved them. Game two, they came out and dominated from start to finish. I'm really curious as to see what we're going to get tonight.
Yeah, I'm about 50-50 on who I think wins this game tonight. I could see it going either way, mainly because I think we both agree Florida, it's very unlikely they're going to have that poor of a performance again. I mean, I can't see them giving up 8 goals or even losing like a 5-0 game. I don't think that'll happen again. On the Edmonton side of things, though, I don't think they're going to lay down and die in this game either. I expect this one to be very tight, almost the exact opposite style we got in game 4. So I guess I'll just get right into the betting angles here. I swear, man, after an 8-1 game like that for Edmonton, what I really like in game 5, and this is probably the most confident I felt on either side of this since game 1, the under. It's sitting at 5.5 on DraftKings, and I think this is the most confident I felt about an over or under since game 1. But I like it here tonight mainly because I think Bobrovsky in particular is really feeling that performance from game 4. Yeah, he didn't allow all 8 goals, but he allowed enough. Like, he allowed 5 goals, which is arguably more than, I don't know the exact number, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was like more than the previous 5 games combined or something close to that. I think your mic's.
Yeah. That was a mercy pulling. Like that wasn't like we're gonna pull you because we have a chance to win the game. That was okay. Game's over. Just take a break. We'll come back in game 5, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that game was well decided by the time Bobrovsky was out of there. So I expect him to bounce back because that's like a rare disappointing performance on his end. And I think the Florida Panthers are just too disciplined and too tough to really allow the Oilers to get the best of them in that degree again. I feel like this is going to be a 3-2 game in some fashion. That would be my prediction. Maybe the Oilers come up with a win in this one, but I think if they do come up with the win, they're really going to have to earn it this time. And with that line sitting at around 5.5, that's something I would really look at in this game. If I had to choose a side, if I had to, maybe I'd put a little money on Edmonton, but like I said, I feel more confident about them than I do the Mavericks because I think the mean will prevail in this game, whereas like they're not going to score 8, but they're not going to be held to 0 or 1 every game moving forward again either. So I feel like this is one of those situations where the mean prevails for Edmonton. In terms of player props here, there's nothing I am like really in love with tonight. Bobrovsky is an interesting prop with 25.5 saves. Actually, when I look at that closely, I could see that going over because, like I said, I do think he's bouncing back tonight. And I don't think the Oilers will be held to under 20 shots on goal like they were in some of the early games. So
yeah,
it's an interesting proposition for sure. I mean, the Oilers had 35 shots on goal in the last game. So I don't think that'll happen again either, but more than 25. I could see that. Maybe about 30 shots, and you just have to save 26 to win the bet. So I'm liking that the more I think about it. I think I'm talking myself into that one. In terms of skaters, it's weird. Like almost everyone went off in that game for Edmonton when they scored 8, but Bouchard was like one of the only players that was kind of I'm not gonna say invisible because he got a point, but he was one of the quieter players for sure on the ice. So I might look at him to step up in game 5. I'm trying to look at his exact odds tonight. Plus 320. Wow, that's interesting.
For
Yeah.
which for
Bouchard to score a goal.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like I felt like he was one of the quieter players in that blowout win. So I don't know. I get a weird feeling he's going to step up. He didn't even have a shot on goal in the last game. I think he wants his piece of the action, so to speak. So
Sure.
that might be one I look at on the Edmonton side. Florida might be feeling Reinhardt again. I forget who scored it was Tarasenko, right? That scored that goal in game 4. I think Florida is going to be looking for a bounce back performance, and I think Reinhardt is one of the better guys to really create a spark for Florida. He does a good job of having timely goals in games where Florida tends to need it. So that might be something I look at on the Panthers side as well.
So before I go on to my thoughts, let's just throw this out here. Florida Panthers on the money line, minus 142. Oilers plus 120 on their side of the money line. Minus 1.5 for the Panthers, plus 180. Plus 1.5 for Edmonton is minus 218. The over is 5.5 at minus 105. The under is minus 115. So the one thing that really sticks out to me from Saturday night on the Florida side is like, listen, these guys, these games happen. It's not out of the ordinary. I mean, for the Panthers, it is, but like these games happen. Sometimes things get away from you. I thought Barkov was awful on Saturday night, which you can almost never ever say. And so for me, and I believe our guy Andre is obviously not on the show today, but his best bet is a Barkov goal, which is let me just pull this up here. Plus 220 for Barkov to score tonight. I thought he was really bad on Saturday night, which, like I said, you can rarely say. The guy is one of, if not the best two-way centerman in the National Hockey League. I want to make this very, very clear. And our guy Adam is making some great points on here. Sam Bennett point. I'm down for anything Sam Bennett, man. That guy's an absolute menace. Yeah. Forsling point. I want to make this very clear. I am Canadian, yes. My being Canadian has nothing to do with what I'm about to say. I do not care if the Edmonton Oilers win or they lose. The fact that they're Canadian means nothing to me. And maybe that means I'm a bad citizen. I don't know. But I want my team to raise the Stanley Cup. I'm not cheering for anybody else. That being said, we saw this in the last 3 games of the series against Dallas. We saw this in the last 2 games of the series against Vancouver. When this team's backs are up against the wall, they tighten up, they play incredibly well defensively, and Stuart Skinner stands on his head. That happened in games 6 and 7 against Vancouver. It happened games 4 through 6 against the Oilers, against Stars. That game on Saturday night, I think that they really needed a sweat-free, let's just destroy this team and move on to Florida. I think they needed it. I understand if you're the Panthers, like what you said, John, it was a blowout. We throw out the tape and we move on. I really do think that the Oilers can win this game tonight. I agree with what you said, John. I think it absolutely has to go under 5.5 minus 115. I definitely think it has to go under. I also think that the depth scoring has to continue to be at the forefront. If you are the Oilers and you're tightening up your defensive play, the Panthers are going to do that 10 times over. The Panthers are going to play incredibly well tonight, and they're going to shut down, or they're going to try to shut down that McDavid line. They're going to try to shut down Draisaitl. They're going to be together at some points of the game, but they've been kept on separate lines for the vast majority. That depth has to continue to shine for the Oilers. We still haven't seen Zach Hyman score, where if this series does end tonight and he doesn't score a goal, that'll be extremely surprising. He's plus 115, which kind of shocks me that he's still the shortest odds to score a goal. Holloway had 2 goals the other night. He's plus 425 to keep it going tonight. Henrique scored the other night. He's plus 425. McLeod scored the other night. He's plus 400. If you're looking at some depth pieces to score, those are the guys that you're looking at. Nugent Hopkins plus 280. McDavid plus 130. I think that's a very good bet. Draisaitl plus 160. So if you're going on the Oilers side of the ledger, all those guys are worth a sprinkle to me. I do think Connor McDavid, he continues to score 100%. I can 100% see him getting one tonight, plus 130. I think the Oilers win tonight, plus 120. I just look at this series as a whole, and I've already mentioned this. Game 1, they should have won. Game 3 should have been much different. Those 6 minutes in the second period can't be talked about enough. They were awful, brought them down 4-1. They came back to 4-3, kept it going on Saturday with the 8-1 win. I think the Oilers have played much, much better than the 3-1 series score would show. And I think the Oilers win tonight. I think it's going to be really low scoring, plus 120, and the under at minus 115. I think shots on goal, we've seen from Connor, he only had 2 shots on goal the other night, 5 shots the game before, 3 shots the game before that, 6 shots the game before that. Tonight in the shot prop, over 3.5 is minus 110. I really like that. Barkov, over 2.5 shots for Barkov is plus money at plus 105. A couple bets. Now, when we throw out these odds and these lines, we do use DraftKings. I will say, though, on the FanDuel side of things, at least in Canada, I don't know if it's different down there in the States, but the Oilers-Panthers game tonight has a super boost, plus 230 for the Panthers to win and Barkov to get 1 point. Has been boosted from plus 115 to plus 230. So I really like that if you like the Panthers to win tonight. However, I'm not going that way. I am going Oilers plus 120 and the under 5.5 at minus 115. I also think it's where are we at here? I want to see this really quickly before we head into our best bets. We got to throw out some series odds. If you think the Oilers are going to win the Stanley Cup, it'll still be pretty long odds if they win tonight. But as of right now, it's plus 700 if you think the Oilers come back to win. So it's worth a sprinkle. I mean, why not? I would say stranger things have happened, but not really. It is a pretty uncommon thing in the NHL. But I mean, listen, I've already said this twice now. I think the Oilers, if you kind of take a step back and look at this whole series, I think that they have played better than a 3-1 series score would tell you. Let's move on. Best bets brought to you by the one, the only first round collectibles. Right now with our promo code Sports Addict, get 10% off whatever sports card you want in the entire first round collectibles store. They have a ongoing sale up to 50% off, tons and tons of cards. And with our promo code Sports Addict, not only do you get 10% off of regular price cards, but sales items as well. Head over to firstroundcollectibles.com today. Use promo code Sports Addict for 10% off regular price and sales priced items. That's the number one, STRoundcollectibles.com. First Round Collectibles, sports cards for sports fans. What do you got, bro? I was going to say John, but it's only you and me. So, John, what do you got as your best bet?
Well, I have more options to look at than you to hand over the betting to, because Andre's not here today. But,
yep.
There are a couple things I really like. I think you brought up a good point about Edmonton starting their positive momentum before Game 4. I think with that said, I'm still going to go with my under 5.5 as the best bet, mainly because I feel like if I had to pick, Edmonton wins this game 3-2, but I feel like Edmonton's going to regress to the mean a little bit when it comes to scoring, but not be quite as bad as they were in the first couple of games. But I think it's going to take a really tight, hard-fought game to beat Florida this time around. I don't think they'll get another laugher in this series. But I think with the way Edmonton plays at their best, they could hold Florida to 2 goals. I don't think that's unheard of. So give me under 5.5 is my best bet. I think no matter what happens tonight with who wins, I expect this to be a very tight game with goals being hard fought.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. 100%. I think it's not strange after a game like what we saw the other night to expect a low scoring game. I also think if you're the Panthers, man, like you were so bad the other night, I just think that they come and play lights out. I do think the Oilers win, like I said, but I do think the Panthers play a complete shutdown game. So we'll see what happens. I know early on you were talking about the shot total for Edmonton. I'm never going to say that the Oilers are not going to put up 30 shots or more on net because it's the Oilers, but it wouldn't shock me if they're in the low 20s. Right? Like that wouldn't shock me at all. We'll see what happens. Andre's best bet is Alexander Barkov at plus 220 for him to score. And for myself, I have hammered this a couple times in the finals so far. And every time that I have bet it, it has hit. When I haven't bet it, it hasn't hit. So I'm going to bet it tonight, and we'll see what happens. Connor McDavid over 3.5 shots on goal. I do think, like we've seen all series long, the depth scoring for the Oilers has to come through. But McDavid has by far been, not by far, but he's been the best player on the ice in this series, in my opinion. And he's leading the way. He's shooting a lot. He didn't really have to shoot that much on Saturday as the game went on. But over 3.5 shots for Connor McDavid is minus 110. And I really, really like it here tonight. The last time I bet this, it hit in the first period. So I really like Connor McDavid over 3.5 shots at minus 110. So Alexander Barkov plus 220. Under 5.5, minus 115. Over 3.5 shots for McDavid, minus 110. Plus 1,500 for a same game parlay. And I absolutely love it. John, gun to your head. We'll be back here tomorrow morning regardless. Are we talking about the Oilers game 6 on Friday, or is the series over?
I don't mean to keep bringing the NBA back into this, but like, I feel like we got to have one game 6. So of these two,
We gotta do, right?
I'm leaning towards Edmonton forces a game 6. Like
I'm right there with you, man.
It'll be a very close game, but I think they could do it.
I'm right there with you, man. And like I said at the beginning of the show, if you win game 5, the series is back to normal. Somebody had to be down 3-2, and it happens to be you. But they got to win tonight. They're right back in this series. I think it's kind of catch-22, right? Because, like, if you have a game 7, you want to be at home. But their game 6 is at home. And so then that city is going absolutely bananas right now. So if you can get game 5, you're back home for game 6, and in game 7, we know anything can happen in a game 7. Everybody, thank you so much for watching, whether you're watching live or throughout the day. We appreciate you. First Round Collectibles, we appreciate you. Promo code Sports Addict for 10% off regular price or sales price items. Excuse me. Shameless plug, TotalApexSports.com for my preview on tonight's game. We'll be back tomorrow. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the game. We'll see you then.